Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
July 30, 2020, the Art of Evasion episode. And we start with that story as a Senate report finds 2 companies linked to Russian oligarchs exploited the opaqueness of the art world to buy high-value art, bypassing U.S. sanctions. American companies, of course, are barred from doing business with sanctioned individuals, but the oligarchs, who are 2 brothers close to President Putin, were able to hide behind an intermediary who made the purchases on behalf of the companies owned or funded by the Rotenbergs. The purchases of works at auction houses and through private art dealers in New York totaled some $18.4 million in value and were made after the Rotenbergs came under U.S. sanctions in 2014. The report said the financial transactions were enabled by secrecy and anonymity, which with the art market operates, and it calls for tighter rules. Imagine that. Next up from the Washington Post, a scathing SBA watchdog report details pervasive fraud in the coronavirus disaster loan program. A federal watchdog says it has identified some $250 million in taxpayer-subsidized loans funds given to potentially ineligible recipients, pointing to a strong likelihood of widespread fraud in an important but troubled economic assistance program. The SBA's Office of Inspector General launched numerous investigations after receiving more than 1,000 hotline complaints about potentially fraudulent transactions. It also criticized the agency for allegedly failing to put in place internal controls to prevent abuse. Among the potentially fraudulent transactions detailed in the report are 1.9 in pending SBA transactions made to accounts outside the United States. Some 3,000 suspicious transactions worth $73 million were flagged by a bank service provider. A credit union told the Justice Department that 59 of 60 SBA deposits appeared to be fraudulent. In response to the report, the SBA spokesman said the agency proactively carried out fraud prevention measures that will halt thousands of invalid applications. The measures included internal systems rules and checks, but such is life in the Trump administration. From the Wall Street Journal, the Wirecard saga deepens as German authorities have asked Russian officials if Jan Marsalek, the former AG Wirecard CFO COO who ran operations for the disgraced company, has entered Russia and requested they act on an Interpol notice issued for his arrest. The request made on July 22nd and a red notice issued through the Interpol group were disclosed in written answers the German government provided to lawmakers and reviewed by the Wall Street Journal. Russia has not yet responded to this request. Of course, they may or may not, but it definitely shows that some think there is Russian involvement behind Wirecard, and where that will end up shaking out, we just do not know at this point. And finally, from the Financial Times, Boeing is going to cut more jobs and cut production. They blame this on the pandemic and economic crisis. Of course, their own actions put the company really at risk. So it's hard to say what's going to hurt Boeing more, their own missteps, their own unethical behavior, their own failures, and the way they've conducted themselves with regulators. Nevertheless, the economic sanctions, or rather the economic conditions of coronavirus, coupled with the Trump administration's handling of it, have laid low Boeing. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Daily Compliance News, which is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio.